Guess who's back? Back again. Worm is back. Tell a friend. Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Sunday night recap show for week 3. I am Ryan Wormeli, filling in for Scott Bogman tonight. And I am joined, I guess I'm kind of filling in for Welsh as well, because I'm sitting in the host chair while Welsh gets to be the analyst tonight. But we are here to recap week 3. I am joined, of course, by Chris Welsh. Welsh, we often talk baseball. We don't talk as much football together. So I'm excited to be on this show. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm very excited to see you. I'm very excited to present my puns, my pun headlines. Bogman puts his together every week, but I am way more dad jokey. It was a wild week, kind of rough on the bets. Survivor pools, there's a whole lot to talk about. And unfortunately, some injuries, and that's why we have the great Deepak Chona on with us.
Yes, very excited to talk to you, Deepak, as well. Of course, we chatted every week last year. I'm not on this show this year, so it's great to get to talk with you again this week. Anecdotally, while watching, maybe it's because there wasn't really anything in the afternoon games, it didn't feel like there was that many significant injuries. Of course, there's always some. It is the NFL. We will definitely get to those. To your point, Welsh, brutal week for survivor pools. I mean, there were so many upsets. It was just insane how many people probably went out in their pools this week.
Hand up. Here, my first pun of the night. It was Survivor dead pools, because
yes.
I'm in a big league, gone. I had in this league one, gone. And looking and scouring, I do this one big league I've told you about. It's like an industry, like 5 elements, and half of the Survivor is gone because there were only 3 teams picked in this Survivor pool by everybody, all the industry people. It was Jacksonville, Kansas City, and Dallas. And me and Bogman are unfortunately one of the crew that went down with it. It was a wild week, man. It was weird stuff, and we're going to be breaking it all down.
Yes, we will dive right in. As always, a lot to get to, so let's just get right in to the injuries here. Derek Carr exited his game early with a shoulder injury. They thought it might have actually been a little more serious than that. Reports after the game, he had gone to the hospital. Reports after the game, it's not quite that serious. It's not season ending or anything like that. Mike Williams exited his game early with a knee injury. Gus Edwards had to come out late in the Ravens loss because it was in concussion protocol. We have Nick Chubb up there because obviously this happened back in week 2. There was an update late in the week, though, that the knee injury maybe not quite so bad as we thought when we all watched that live on Monday Night Football. So we want to get Deepak's opinion on that too. And then Justin Jefferson did leave his game very briefly. He did come back. It was a little scary at first with him on the ground, but it appeared to kind of just be cramps. So Deepak, what was your main takeaway from the injuries today?
Yeah, I think the big one was probably Derek Carr there, and he went down pretty hard on that shoulder. The comments and the video together suggest a moderate AC or SC sprain, basically the joints up here that you land on really hard. And the key is that this is a throwing side for a quarterback. So the average on these is about 2 to 3 weeks, but we expect it to be a little bit on the longer side. Probably, if I had to guess, say 3 for now with Derek Carr. Certainly a multi-week absence giving his position. And then if you look at Mike Williams, he had his foot planted, had that rotation. That's really concerning for an ACL. Best case scenario there is still a knee sprain, like an MCL bone bruise type picture, which would be about 2 to 4 weeks. But I think more likely, unfortunately, we may be looking at a ACL for Mike Williams that'll go down with the MRI tomorrow.
Yeah, that's tough. Welsh, I want to get your opinion on Carr, just because there are some really nice fantasy assets in the Saints offense. Chris Olave, very talented young receiver. We're getting Alvin Kamara back next week. So how significantly does this impact the Saints offense as a whole if Jameis Winston is going to be starting games for the next several weeks?
I'm not sure it's like a crazy downgrade. Winston came in, was 10 for 16. He looked rusty, but that's also, just sitting on the pine, not running with the ones the entire time. But at the same time, we know Winston can move the ball down the field deep. And what is Chris Olave's best asset? It is being able to go really deep while also being able to move across the field. I'm just not sure we're missing too much. Through the first 2 weeks, Carr was a middle tier QB1 in week 1, scored 7 fantasy points at the quarterback position in week 2. On average, he is outside the easy top 15 of quarterbacks. So is Winston that bad of a interchange? I'm not really so sure. Plus you get Kamara coming back next week, which maybe spreads defenses out a little bit for a couple wide receivers that can go deep. Mike Williams can move across the middle of the field. I'd actually say similar in that you didn't downgrade, or maybe some of you did, but you didn't downgrade Anthony Richardson being out with Minshew coming in. You didn't really downgrade. Pittman looked phenomenal today with Minshew. I kind of think it could be similar in that Winston's going to be able to move the ball. They've got Kamara back, which is going to be a real big positive for that offense. And, everyone was all over Kendre Miller. He was fine. But I think we'll be okay for the other assets. I'm not sure it makes Winston a startable QB. In a 2-quarterback league, he's definitely going to be viable and someone you're probably going to have to pay attention to on waivers. Because Deepak, what did you say? This is going to be probably a multi-week thing for Carr. What would you guesstimate? Like 2 to 4?
Yeah, 2 to 4 would be a good estimate for starters. It's hard to say, but yeah, my guess would be 3 if I had to pick one number.
Yeah, and in a super flex, we know, if you can buy and spend a little bit of fab to get a quarterback even for 3 weeks, that's an upgrade. If you were an idiot like me who sometimes has to put out Dobbs or Zach Wilson, you might want to make that pay. But I'm not going to downgrade any of the Saints options.
Very quickly, Welsh, any waiver wire wide receivers on the Chargers with the Mike Williams news?
Josh Palmer looks, I think he always looks great. He looked great in the preseason. He caught a touchdown in this one. I mean, this is Keenan Allen's team. We're going to talk about him here in a little bit, but I do think with how they throw the ball and how ineffective Josh Kelly, I can't even believe I talked myself into it. We got to be done with that. And they just have to throw the ball. Josh Palmer, I think, does move into like wide receiver 3 territory if Mike Williams does miss time.
Herbert was awesome today. So I want them to throw the ball, even if Josh Kelly was good. I would want them to throw the ball. Deepak, any concern about Gus Edwards playing next week with that concussion?
If he's got a concussion, 2/3 of players in the modern protocol would end up missing next week and return most likely the following, actually.
And then I just want to get your opinion on Nick Chubb, Deepak. We got the Adam Schefter report later this week. Again, when everybody watched it live, our first thought for a lot of people was, myself included, this might be career altering. It looked that bad. This news seems to be more positive, though. It's a little more optimistic about his return for next year, right, Deepak?
Yeah, I think in either case, basically what they're saying is the MCL is torn and then the ACL is partially torn. And the key is really what happens with that ACL. When you put him to sleep, you'll examine the knee. You'll really see how loose or unstable it is. And if it is loose, then at that point, you would probably just treat it as if it's almost like a full tear and you do the reconstruction. That would put his timeline around 9 months roughly for a return. So even in that case, which is basically the worst case, that would still give him an excellent shot for week 1. You would see usually a performance dip initially for about the first half of the next year, but beyond that, he should be able to return pretty much to where he was before this injury occurred.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's just awesome news. It's crazy that it's awesome news to hear that a guy has a torn MCL and partial torn ACL, but given what we thought it could have been, it really is.
Yeah, not everybody's reaction was like super calm. Mine was like, bleh! Like they don't do any of those things well. Like they're like, we're not going to reshow this replay, and I'm like, good, let's delete it from.
When the broadcast team immediately says we are not showing this replay, it's not a good sign. And then lastly, before we let you go, Deepak, just quickly, both quarterbacks in the Bears-Chiefs game left. Fields looked kind of bad. I mean, DJ Moore had to call to the sideline to be like, get this guy off the field. Something happened. He got punched in the head. And then Mahomes had kind of the ankle roll up. Both guys came back in after their respective injuries. Is there any long-term concern for either of those guys?
Yeah, I think the question with Mahomes, he could clearly play through it. Low ankles usually don't affect quarterbacks that greatly. The only issue would be if he took another weird twist or fall on it, and that nobody can totally predict, but that would be a little bit of a re-injury risk there. And then with Fields, he certainly looked like he had some sort of head injury. So we have seen players sort of retroactively enter the concussion protocol in recent years, but it's hard to say what's going to happen here. If he does enter concussion protocol, again, 2/3 chance he misses 1 week and returns the following.
Maybe I'm overreacting, but like that seemed like old school football to me. Like he looked like he got knocked into not knowing where he was, who he was, what planet he was. He's like, am I a quarterback? And they're like, no, not really, but you kind of are. You're behind the center. And then like they put him back in. I wouldn't be surprised if something comes back out because it looked like he got knocked stupid and he came back in the game, and that was really surprising.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, you don't see that as much anymore.
No.
He is Dr. Deepak Chona. We will say goodbye to him for this week. Deepak, good to talk to you again. Thank you for joining us as always, and we'll see you again for week 4.
All right.
Welsh, you talked a big game about these headlines, so let's jump right in.
Oh God, they're going to be awful. They're going to be. Who was that pretty voice we just had there too? That voice sounded so familiar. Worm.
Yeah, it does sound really. I guess it's different when I'm actually hosting the show and get to toss to myself there for a second.
You're like, hey, it's Worm. We're going to go to Worm. All right, so here are my headlines for today. At quarterback, Field of bad dreams. Justin Field outside of the concussion. Hope he's okay, but not good. 11 of 22, 99 passing yards. He has now thrown a pick in every single game, and he got like a good cheap bit of it at the very end of the game with DJ Moore. DJ Moore, like one catch going into the fourth quarter when they were down by more than 40. Fields looked awful. He could not do anything. The Chiefs defense is way better than I think a lot of us thought, but we are now in a space where Fields has finished 15 at quarterback in week 1, 20 in week 2, and God knows wherever it is going to finish out when everything is said done. I'm going to guess it's going to be around post 20. So that is 3 straight weeks. A quarterback that people were selling as a top 5 quarterback is not going to be able to finish remotely close to a QB1. We're 100% in bench territory and finding any other option. Brock Purdy is a better option. Hey, legit, Jameis Winston might be a better option at this point. You can't start him until something changed, and nothing has changed. So it's a pretty bad dream, Worm.
Is there a path to him figuring this out? I mean, last year he started off really slowly, and then he came on when they let him run more. He ran a little more today, and it just didn't matter.
Yeah, the path is like what they set up, where first off he blames everybody, and then he's like, "No, it's me, it's totally me." And then we were all like, "Oh, he's gonna run, he's gonna go." And funny enough, I think his rushing prop was in the 50s, or I know Lamar's was in the 60s, and he absolutely crushed that today. But he had nothing going. So the path is being able to hit your receivers, and he has not proven to do that. And that offense has got nothing. I mean, DJ Moore made some mistakes in this game. I just think this offense is worn down. I think they're beat down. They need a scheme change. So there's a path, but I don't see it. I don't know where it is. All right, headline number 2. We're actually going to go to the wide receivers. This is a tough one. Keenan and peeling off PPR points. You like that one? No, that was a pretty lame one. I'm sorry, it's pretty lame.
I'm on board with that one.
Okay, Keenan and peeling off PPR points. Keenan Allen was a monster today. 20 targets, caught 18 for 215. And as a reminder, he is that offense still. He is still that guy. Like, I argue with Bogman on a week in and week out basis about Keenan Allen. He's like, I don't want any part of him. And you saw the target share. Now, unfortunately, we're probably going to be without Mike Williams for some bit. Austin Eckler out. What does this offense do? They sling the ball and they sling it to Keenan Allen. And Keenan Allen is still able to find that separation. He's just a double-digit target monster every single week. And there was a couple really good wide receiver performances here, but I think this is a good reminder that this team right now, because I don't see any great sign of Austin Eckler coming back, especially with his own comments and the team's comments. He's not coming back this coming week or probably the next week. This team can't run the ball. They've got to throw the ball, and they're now down one of their big dynamic wide receivers. This is going to be the Keenan Allen show. Maybe the yards aren't always going to be there. They sure were in this game because it was against the Minnesota Vikings. So find really good matchups where you can. Keenan Allen is rocking. You think Keenan Allen is a wide receiver 1 rest of the season?
Yes, okay. I definitely do. I mean, especially if you're in PPR, but I think even not, I would say he has to be.
All right, this is my biggest reach because I really struggled with this one. And now there might be a better one. Okay, so here's the first line for tight end. Laporta a day keeps the losses away. Like, it's more like a Laporta. Maybe it's Son of Sam. Son of Sam might be a little bit better, but Sam Laporta is really good. This is my worst headline of them. Sam Laporta, 11 targets, 8 catches, 84 yards, a score. Jared Goff loves him. His target share increases every single week. And he has continuously not been in the upper echelon of tight ends, but he's going to need to be. He's going to need to be moving forward. I have kept him there. First week was kind of understandably. Then it went up to 6 points. This week, he's going to be one of the top scoring guys. And for perspective, last week, only 3 tight ends. What am I on? Am I on standard here? Let me go to half PPR. So I'm giving this properly because I was giving you incorrect ones. Last week, we had only 5 tight ends score double-digit points. 2 of them scoring 10. And Laporta beat that. And in the previous week was actually 8.8 points. Sam Laporta is on a high rise, and I think easy top 10 tight end moving forward, like bar none. Like you have to rank him there. It's over Kincaid. It's over Njoku. It's over a lot of these guys.
He's breaking the rules we have for rookie tight ends coming into the league slowly. He's breaking that.
Who would you rather have rest of the season, Sam Laporta or Darren Waller?
Oh gosh. I mean, I don't want to be like recency bias. It sure looks like Laporta.
It's Laporta. Sorry, D-Bro. It's Laporta.
Well, D-Bro loves both of them, so.
No, he does, but he'll Darren Waller. So maybe we can argue about that later in the week, but it is going to be Sam Laporta. So those are my 3 before we get to
the here's to what's next. Miller Lite headline of the day is
Raheem most touchdowns. 4 touchdowns, 142 yards. He caught it. He ran it. He scored it, but he didn't even score the most points in the backfield. That would be Devin Achane, who was a monster, but Raheem Mostert continues to show these flashes. This offense is wild with the points they scored. I mean, they could beat some NBA teams with the points they put up today. And the interesting thing, though, is going to be how do you manage this Miami backfield moving forward? Because Achane looked good. Mostert looked good. Is this going to be a 1-2 punch the whole season, and then they're going to throw Jeff Wilson in and screw it all up? Will one of these guys push forward, or are they both the biggest sells of all time? I think that's something that we can kind of argue and talk about when we get through the rest of the week. And I know the entire Fantasy Pros crew will be. I would say that Mostert is a big sell for me right now. This is an awesome performance because I think Achane is on the way up. But what say you, Worm? What do you think?
But the biggest reason that Mostert would be a sell for me is just the health. We'd never, ever see him last through an entire season. If you guaranteed me health, if you said Raheem Mostert is going to play all 17 games this season, I probably wouldn't sell him. Now, to a degree, anybody coming off a 4-touchdown game is a sell because you probably can get somebody really good for them. So, yeah, sure. Like in a vacuum, even if you told me he was going to be healthy, if I could go get a guy that I'm confident is an RB1 this season, I probably would still do that. But to me, the bigger question is not, is Achane going to take over this backfield? Because we have evidence from today that they can both absolutely thrive. I'm assuming you just picked Mostert as your headline, by the way, instead of Achane, just because you had a better pun for it.
I had a much
headline.
Better. I think the Achane one was a little bit more struggling, but I actually also did it because I wanted to talk about both of them. The most touchdowns was in there. This will be interesting though, because one thing I'll point out, and I know there's always going to be the guy in the chat that I'm not looking at it, but they'll be like, what can you get for him? What can you're going to trade him? Yeah. There's always those person. It's like, sure, but people are going to pay attention to that high flying offense. If you look at snap counts, Mostert had 63% of snaps, 6 of 8 on 3rd and 4th down, while Achane 47%, 8 of 10 inside the top 10. That's according to Dave Richard from CBS. Both very interesting numbers, and maybe both of them can end up thriving in what is a crazy big offense. But we also know this was without Waddle. They're also not going to score 70 points every single week. But what side do you take?
About?
You take
high. You could score 70 points every week.
Hey, maybe. You never know. That's why we like these guys. But, do you take high snap percentages with 3rd downs, or are you going to take those goal lines? Achane is going to be, I think, a RB3 moving forward until he proves otherwise. But they're both going to be in the same way. I actually think it's to be fascinating who's ranked higher next week, because Achane had 18 more carries than Mostert, but the snap percentage went to Mostert. So it'll be a fun debate.
I will be really curious to see that as well. With a Miller Lite in your hand, fall doesn't just taste great. It tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/FantasyPros. That's MillerLite.com/FantasyPros. Or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Anybody who was facing one of those 2 running backs could sure use a Miller Lite tonight. I could use one after that Ravens game, but we will get to that one.
Oh, I just want to point out too, I have a lineup. It's so brutal to look at, where under my flex was Jackson Smith and Jigba, and under it on the bench, the top bench, Devin Achane, who scored 51 points in a league. But I did have Achane in a best ball today, and that was monstrous. So that's the only place, because every human being out here We all didn't start him. We all didn't reap the benefits.
I think Yahoo said, I saw them tweet that only 2% of people started him in that, which is honestly even lower than I expected, but I expected it to be quite low.
I'm in the 98% all of you as well.
Yes, as most people watching are. Let's get into the entire slate. We'll go through every game and recap standout players, stat lines, all that fun stuff. We will start with Chargers 28, Vikings 24. Fancy takeaway, go off Keenan Allen. We talked about him already, but just 18 catches, 215 yards, a whopping 20 targets. Justin Herbert was on point in this game, and a lot of that was going to Keenan Allen. Also threw for a touchdown. So he was incredible. Like you already said, on a couple other notes here, Josh Kelly could not do anything in this one. Another week where he struggled big time. We already talked about Mike Williams getting banged up a bit. On the other side, quickly too, Alexander Mattison, we kind of talked a bit during the week about Cam Akers is in town, but he's not going to play. This is sort of your last chance to hold on to the job. He didn't do a great job of holding on to the ball, but he kind of was okay. 20 carries, 93 yards, 5 catches as well. I mean, he's kind of seems like just a guy. What was your takeaway from Madison?
I think it's Jag. I think he is just a guy because I think this is done. That fumble, bad. The drop, bad. You could just hear Cam Akers. It was like the rise of the empire. Just the drums in the background coming for him, or Thrawn. If you guys watch the most recent Ahsoka, just it's coming in. You can feel that happening with Cam Akers. Madison's not that great. Great that he had 20 carries and 93 yards versus the Chargers. That's fantastic, but I'm not a buy on him. I'm also not. I think Josh Kelly looked atrocious, and this has just got to be done. I mean, we are in a very big cut territory, and then of course he's going to go off because that's the problem. Is who's going to start him next week? No one's going to start. You can't start him after we've all been oh no, this is the time. No, it's not the time. The last little takeaway I thought was fascinating was how Jordan Addison was able to make the day in the second half. He got nothing in the first half. Cousins didn't even look his way. And then all of a sudden it was 2 drives in the late third, early fourth quarter where Addison was able to hit his wide receiver prop, which I had bet. And he almost caught that touchdown that was tipped. It would have been love to see him get that. But I think Osborne's got to go. We need to see more Addison. And I hope we continue to see that more than just the second half moving forward.
Addison's a good player. Touchdowns each of the first 2 weeks, kind of, making up here in the second half today. I want them to give him a lot more work. Very quickly before we move out this game, should TJ Hawkinson be tight end 2 going forward? Yeah, obviously he's not gonna be ahead of Kelsey, but has he surpassed Mark Andrews?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Mark Andrews was held to 4 catches in this game. Kittle just had the huge breakout game, but he's kind of wildly inconsistent. The Vikings throw the ball almost more than anybody. So yeah, I think Hawkinson is kind of locked into number 2 until it's proven otherwise.
The Vikings are in Carolina next week, and then the Chargers will host the Raiders. Let's go to a shellacking in DC. The Bills 37, Commanders just 3. Sam Howell was terrible. He's been better than some people expected to start the year. Absolutely awful today. 19 of 29, 170 yards, 4 picks, and just 1 rush for 18 yards.
Yeah, I've been saying it on streams. I know people get picky about it, but Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, they're the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Maybe Sam Howell, he had a really good comeback, and I'm being dramatic about it. Desmond Ridder's the worst quarterback, easy, in the NFL. But Sam Howell's just not that great. He makes some awesome plays with his legs. He absolutely kept multiple drives alive with his legs. But it's not great. Buffalo's a tough team to play as well. So I think Jahan Dotson is almost a cut at this point. It's a 3rd straight week where it's just not happening with Dotson. Sam Howell doesn't look at him enough. McLaurin wasn't able to get enough going as well. And then on the Bills side, just James Cook continue. I just point out with James Cook, he got the 16 touches, which you love to see. And his rushing prop attempt, I said this on the live stream in the morning, was 12.5. And it was one of my favorite bets of the day when I saw it this morning. And he was able to hit that in the 4th quarter, which was a huge, big win. So James Cook, I hate seeing Latavius Murray get carries. It annoys me every time. I want to keep seeing Cook get in there, but they even played Cook a little bit when the game was out of hand. But Bills getting their feet back under them. And a lot of people, who you were, had Washington plus money in this game, and doesn't feel so good.
I mean, Cook is getting the usage we were clamoring for all offseason. He's just not getting in the end zone.
I know. That's the Murray stuff.
Depending on your scoring, he's a very high-end RB2 already, and that's without any touchdowns. So once those follow, which you would have, I mean, unless he's like this year's Miles Sanders from 2 years ago, you would have to imagine the touchdowns are going to come. And
in half
he's
PPR,
really
he
good.
is RB12 coming into this week. He was already RB12 coming into this week. So add this in, he's going to be a top 15 back through 3 weeks of the season in half PPR. It's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Shout out Tara Roberts, who loves James Cook.
Yes. Yeah, she does. In week 4, we actually have an awesome game. It's going to be the game of the week is going to be the Dolphins are heading to Buffalo to face these Bills. That's going to be a really fun one. And then Washington is going to be in Philly. That one might be a little less fun. Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games. And who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. So get in on the NFL Week 4 action moving forward with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code FantasyPros to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code FantasyPros. The crown is yours. Let's move to Packers 18, Saints 17. This one looked like the Saints were running away with it. Obviously, we had the Derek Carr injury. And Jordan Love, who looked really bad early against a very good and a very consistent defense in New Orleans, led a comeback here. It's not that they scored a lot. It was only 18 points, but it was enough to win, Welsh.
Yeah, he looked okay, and it looked like it was going to be an absolute disaster, but he rushes. He gets a passing touchdown, which was good. A.J. Dillon, this is another one of those situations like Josh Kelly. We can only give you so many weeks to be like the guy and fail where we can have any trust moving forward. I don't see why you would trust him moving forward. It looked like Jones was almost able to go. He got a practice on Friday. I'm going to presume that he's going to be back next week. And I'm not a big proponent of just cutting players just to be like, ooh, let's cut these guys. But if there's somebody viable that's sitting out there, like I don't see the reason. Now he might have that game, that big game, but I think it's always tough when there are guys that it's like, you're never going to start them when they have the big game. And then you're going to, okay, now let's get them. And they don't. I think he's inconsistent. If there was something great out there, I'd be fine moving forward. I just don't trust it. Jaden Reed, by the way, a couple drops did not look good in this game. Kendre Miller on the Saints side was okay. He led the way in carries, 9 for 34. Nothing really in the passing game. Saints offense was just a little bit stuttered, and we'll see what they are moving forward.
What do you make of Jordan Love just rest of season? Because he's going to get Christian Watson back, which is going to help a lot, we would think. Yeah. Getting Aaron Jones back will help too. He's been so touchdown dependent early on in the year. He's been getting those touchdowns. I think he was QB2 after the first 2 weeks because he had thrown 6 touchdowns. But like you said, kind of having those growing pains. So like rest of season, if you had to assign a number to him, where are you ranking him?
Oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, he's number 3 through 2 weeks in fantasy over on FantasyPros. You guys can check out the ranks, and they have I love the sheet where you can check the by week stats. Yeah. I would say Jordan Love is like, if I had to assign a number, 15 is the number that came into my head. That was the number that popped in. Like, I think he's like a solid super flex. He's a little bit probably better at cost than what you drafted him. He's a solid second quarterback in super flex. I think things are going to pop down a little bit, but like you said, it's been kind of a hot start, and he saved himself. And they were getting shellacked early on. And, really he was a big force of that comeback.
I have a dynasty super flex league where my 4 quarterbacks are Deshaun Watson, who's been terrible this year, although better today. Yeah. Jordan Love, who people are expecting regression. Ryan Tannehill, who makes me want to throw up. And then CJ Stroud. And I thought Stroud was going to be kind of like a bench guy most of this year and was a long-term play. It turns out he might just be the best quarterback.
That's your dude. Yeah, that's your best guy.
Yeah, my weekly starter. The Saints are going to host the Bucs next week. And then the Packers play on Thursday Night Football. They will host the Lions. That's
maybe Aaron Jones doesn't get back. You know what? Maybe they saved him for that Thursday Night Football game.
Yeah, possibly. Speaking of those Lions, they hosted the Falcons. And then we talked about already, like Sam Laporta, huge, like I say breakout, but he's been catching passes in every game. So this has been really fun to watch. Like I said, really breaking that model that we expect out of rookie tight ends. So he's definitely a tight end 1 moving forward. It certainly has to be. Jahmyr Gibbs, with no David Montgomery in town due to his injury, was just okay in his first start. He got the usage we wanted, which was nice. Did you have any major takeaways from watching Gibbs?
No, I mean, solid back. I had actually bet early on in the year his over season long 660 rushing yards. I think that's absolutely in play. Montgomery's looked good. It was interesting though that like when he became the primary back, he stopped being a focal point in the passing game, and they were very like hyper focused. There were only 4 completions total to tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs combined for the Lions. That's it. And Jahmyr Gibbs only had 1 targeted twice. So I didn't love that he was kind of taken out of the game. And speaking of taken out of the game, Bijan Robinson was completely shut down because I reiterate once again, Desmond Ridder is so bad. He's so atrociously bad to watch that I just don't know that they can keep. I thought I saw Heineke get into that game at the end, though I'm not seeing any registered stats, and I thought he threw a pass, but maybe my vision was just blurred with it. But he's just bad, and they can't, the ineffective drives, throwing at feet, overthrowing guys, and they, it held Bijan to 10 rushes total. He did have 4 for 27 receiving, but Bijan's this is the most dynamic player in football. You have to like get him the primary carries, but this offense is so ineffective under Ridder that it just continuously gives you these middle-line crappy performances. London 6 targets, 2 catches. Pitts had 9 targets in this game, but caught 5. It's just these really fun fantasy options that are depleted by what is just a bad quarterback.
Pitts could have had a 90-yard touchdown if there was a better throw, and it wouldn't have been a gimme because there was a defender kind of close, but that was on the table given his athleticism.
I think it was a little encouraging about Pitts with the target share, but like he's still
he got targets. He got targets in the second half of last season and still did not do or like before getting hurt, like in second half of his season last year, and still was not able to do much, just like getting the target share because the quarterbacking was so bad. So you hope Ridder, if he can just be average, man. I mean
he's not.
I know, but if he can get there, if he can get to average between Bijan and Pitts and London and even Algier, there's so much fantasy potential here. But yeah, on the Lions side, it really is nuts. You very rarely see a team only target 4 players the entire game, the way the Lions did. By the way, I didn't say the score. Lions won that one 20-6. We already mentioned what they're doing next week. They're playing on Thursday Night Football. The Falcons, I did do a double take that were already into the London games. They're going to playing at Jacksonville nominally in London. So
I forgot about that.
Make sure you get up early. I mean, it's here in the notes. I didn't put together the show sheet, so I'm just trusting it. But that's it comes early in the season, and make sure you get up early on Sunday, especially if you're a West Coaster.
Or don't. Or just like get some extra rest and don't watch what is going to be the worst game of the season. Jags stink. Falcons stink. Maybe if you get 20 carries from Bijan, it'll be fun. But yeah, maybe just don't and just sleep.
If you do want to sleep in, make sure you use FantasyPros Autopilot as a part of my playbook to not have what we had last year, which was when Alvin Kamara didn't play in that early game and people weren't up early in time and left him in their lineups. Don't get caught by surprise in this game for whatever it is. Use Autopilot for the London games at least. Let's go to another beatdown. Cleveland 27. Tennessee just 3. Deshaun Watson had his best game of the season. Now it was against a pass funnel defense that we kind of were hoping he was going to have his best game of the season. He, of course, also still had just the funniest, most abysmal highlight of the year. You saw this, right, Welsh, where he's falling down and goes full Carson Wentz and literally throws the ball backwards in the wrong direction. I think it was Elijah Moore to go fall on the ball. I mean, that was hysterical.
He's the best. He's the best. He's the best of the garbage out there. Yeah, I mean, look better. That's great. Amari Cooper was a pretty obvious, it was a pretty obvious play, and just like the shares that he's getting, 7 for 116 in a score. They purposely got Elijah Moore back in it. 9 targets, caught all 9, but for only 49 yards. They just wanted to get him short. The Jerome Ford situation was pretty interesting because he ended up only having 8 total touches, 12 total touches. He had 10 carries, but for only 18 yards. He did have a cheap score, and he caught 2 for 33 in a score. On the snap counts for this one, it was 58% Jerome Ford. Kareem Hunt got a little bit, 15% snap with 2 carries. By the way, Jerome Ford's 58 snaps were 3 carries, and Pierre Strong had 9% snap count with 1 carry. They just didn't have anything in the tank. I just wonder if you're going to see a whole lot more of, even if Kareem Hunt's snap count isn't insanely high, I think you're going to see a lot more run forced into his snap count, where Jerome Ford is out there doing more pass blocking, catching a little bit. I think he might be really tough. Maybe it was this defense in general, but maybe it's going to be tough for him to be a RB2 moving forward. But just we got to play
Titans
matchups.
run defense is really good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were expecting Ford to not have a very good day. So just the 2 touchdowns kind of saves it for you. On the Titan side, it's in the notes, Tajay Spears outsnapped Derrick Henry in this one. Why? Why?
We had a question in the live stream this morning where it was like, hey, who would you rather? And I'm forgetting who the other person was, but one was Tajay Spears. And I was like, well, the only reason to hold Tajay Spears right now is at the expense of Henry getting injured, where the other person, again, forgive me for not remembering who it was, but it was like, this person can be the number one on that team. But it's like, what are they doing? Like, you should just 35 carries, 35 touches every single game for Derrick Henry. And that wasn't the case here. So I don't know. Tajay Spears still isn't really flex eligible or anything like that, but this is Tajay Spears experiment. There you go. Titans don't have anything else going on.
Yeah. Titans are hosting the Bengals next week, and the Browns are hosting the Ravens. Are you starting Deshaun Watson against the Ravens? Because the Ravens secondary is super banged up, but the defense has played really well. I think Mike McDonald's an awesome defensive coordinator. So against Deshaun, are you going to start him confidently?
No, definitely not confident. Yeah, I'm not a Deshaun Watson guy. I ranked him preseason at like 16. I don't rank him inside the top 12 unless it's absolutely necessary. So no, I'm not going to trust that matchup. Your Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, my Baltimore Ravens. Again, we will get to that game later, unfortunately. I mentioned autopilot, and just to let you know about all the other stuff my playbook does, you can manage your fantasy football lineups and dominate your leagues with my playbook from FantasyPros. It's a suite of powerful tools to help you make better decisions, manage your lineups, and win your leagues. Created by FantasyPros, the #1 fantasy sports advice and tools provider in the world. This app will let you import your team to get custom fantasy football news, rankings, and analysis. So sync your leagues today at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or download directly to your Apple or Android device. Welsh, let's get to it. Didn't end up being the most surprising outcome of the day, but one of the most surprising outcomes of the early slate, certainly. Texans 37, Jaguars just 17. The Jags offense continues to struggle. The Texans offense does not struggle with my boy CJ Stroud. Tank Dell, 5 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Big broken play late in that one. He led the Texans in targets, catches, and yards. He's very undersized, but maybe it doesn't matter because he's just so good at everything else.
Tank is probably going to lead the waiver stuff this week. I don't remember what his percentages were coming in. Obviously, I know this past week he would have been one of those guys, but I think the under-owned percentage is still enough out there that he'll probably lead the way. By the way, in DK today, 3,600, massive value. We played him. Bogman and I played him in a couple lineups, and it was a huge get. And CJ Stroud is just that guy. He's just like, he is the back end super flex guy. He's a sleeper quarterback every single week. He was one of the cheapest quarterbacks on the DK slate as well. And it's 2 touchdowns, 200 yards. There's just volume. 30 pass attempts. I want to say that's 3 straight weeks of 30 plus pass attempts. They just throw the ball. This was the first time they could show any semi-effectiveness, and it really wasn't running the ball. They were still 26 carries for 86 yards. It was under 3.5 yards per carry, but they just throw the ball. Nico was completely irrelevant in this game, but that's the unique thing this team has. They've got Nico Collins, they've got Robert Woods, but Tank is that playmaker, and Tank is absolutely a viable wide receiver 3, I think, moving forward with how much Stroud likes to go to him.
Yeah, and Nico's been great this year. Obviously,
Love
kind of
Nico.
his first bad game. We're not worried about him long term. I might be worried about the Jags offense. I could not have been more bought in the offseason. I got Trevor Lawrence in every league. I got Calvin Ridley in every league. We have a whole team league here internally at FantasyPros where you kind of do the salary cap draft, but for entire teams. And I was happy to bid the most on the Jags. I was just so fully bought in. Now this is 2 straight weeks that they've really struggled. What's your concern level for this offense as a whole?
I think it's like enormously high. I play in a guillotine league, and if people don't know what that is, like every week a team gets chopped, and then those players go in the player pool. I didn't get involved in the other players, but I had Anthony Richardson on both my guillotine teams, so I don't get chopped. I put a small bid on Trevor Lawrence, and I was like, "Whoa, look at me, big guy in town here. I'm going to be rocking. I just got Trevor Lawrence for practically nothing." Well, he's been playing like practically nothing. I don't understand the ineffectiveness of the offense overall. Calvin Ridley just kind of keeps disappearing. They got the targets to Christian Kirk, but they can't move the ball properly. I mean, 19 for 88 on Travis Etienne is fine, but their defense is playing bad. It's just super underwhelming performances. I will say I kind of think there might be a decent buying opportunity for a guy like Calvin Ridley. I think Lawrence loves him, and when they get right, it's going to be because of Calvin Ridley. So 2 weeks of I think maybe opens up an opportunity to get a decent value on Ridley. So I might look at him in the trade market.
We sat here after week 1, and I remember doing shows with Debro and asking, where would you rank Ridley rest of season now that we've seen that he doesn't have all this rust he needs to shake off? And he was like wide receiver 5, like very, very aggressive about it. Hasn't played out the last 2 weeks, but I think you're probably right. There's a buy low opportunity here. Jags are hosting the Falcons in London, like we said. And then the Texans are hosting the Steelers next week. Steelers, of course, playing right now on Sunday Night Football, so we don't know what they did quite yet as of the time of recording this. Let's get to an AFC East matchup here. New England 15, New York Jets 10. Very ugly game. All games with this Jets defense plus Zach Wilson are going to be ugly, but the Patriots are also not good. Mac Jones is also not good. Is there even anything to say about this?
No, I really don't. I mean, I don't want to hold people up from the Sunday Night Football game enough. And I know I don't want to waste podcast listeners' time, but Elliott, I know no one wants Elliott to be a problem, but he kind of is still. Ramondre Stevenson still not playing well. He got 19 carries for 59, but Elliott was 16 of 80. Both these offenses are just kind of muted. I'm so dumb. Like, I just wanted to be like, oh, Garrett Wilson, it can be okay. It's not okay. 9 targets in this game, but he didn't even have 50 yards on 5 catches. It's bad. So we don't have to talk. We don't have to even think about this game again, ever.
Just very quickly, because of his talent, do we need to see it before we're willing to start Breece Hall again?
I kind of think we are. I thought this was going to be the get right situation. They did give him the majority of carries because he complained last week, but he had 13 total touches. And I think if Breece is going to get right, we got to get to 18. So if you have viable options, he is. I think at best he's a flex right now. And when you're a flex, you can get outmatched by guys like Zach Moss in decent matchups. So I'd probably rather have Zach Moss right now than Breece Hall.
Pats are at the Cowboys next week, so that will be an interesting one after today's results. And the Jets are on Sunday Night Football next week hosting the Chiefs. That might be a terrible game.
Yeah,
it probably will be a terrible game. I don't know why I said might. That game's going to suck. It'll be very one-sided. So let's go from the ugliest game of the day and maybe of the year to one of the most impressive offensive performances we might ever see. I mean, the Dolphins were a field goal. They took a knee. They could have kicked a field goal to literally set the NFL record. They scored 70 points in this game. They allowed 20 points to the Broncos and still won by 50. That's how dominant this win was. Just jaw-dropping. We talked about the running backs already in our headline segment at the top of the show. The Devon A-Chain, 18 carries, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, also 4 catches, 2 more touchdowns. Raheem Mostert, just 82 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Oh, by the way, also caught 7 balls for 60 yards and another touchdown. Just incredible. I'm pretty sure I saw that. I forget who tweeted it, but there was some tweet that was going around that this is the most points in PPR scoring that a pair of running backs have scored from the same team in the same game ever. And it's actually not even close. It's like they're in the 90s. Next closest is in the mid 80s, and nobody else is even within 20 of them. I mean, it was insane. Tyreek Hill, his usual excellent self, 9 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown. Tua Tagovailoa might be the MVP. I mean, it's a very easy situation for him, given the play calling and the talent around him, but he's playing phenomenally well. Just an awesome fireworks game.
Yeah, 350 rushing yards total in this game, which also just shows you how bad Denver is as well. The only thing I'm going to add is actually on the Denver side. I think it was encouraging with Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy is back, but Cortland Sutton got the most targets. He got 11. He had some bad fumbles, but 8 for 91 in a score, and Russ was targeting him left and right. So I think that has made him move out of this, like, ooh, is he going to be relevant, into like, oh, yeah, no, he's still a main target, but this Denver team is really, really bad. So that's my main takeaway.
Can we get Marvin Mims some more touches? Just like only good things happen when Mims touches the ball. He's so explosive, and they just give him like 10 snaps a game. I don't know what it was today, but he ran 5 routes last week and had over 100 yards. Like, can we do more with him, please? He had the kick return for a touchdown in this one. Boy, let me tell you how little I want to watch the Broncos next game. They are in Chicago. We get Broncos, Bears. I tweeted this out earlier from the Fantasy Pros account. This is the easily movable, the easily stoppable object meets the super movable object. I mean, it is like, I cannot tell you how little I want to watch this game. It is major Thursday night football vibes, even though it's going to be played on a Sunday. That game is going to be atrocious.
It's the Miller Lite game of the week, because it's Miller Lite's the only thing that's going to make that game bearable.
Yes, go buy some Miller Lites because you will need it if you're watching that game. And then, like we said, on the other side of this, Dolphins play the game I'm most excited about by far next week, which is Dolphins at the Bills. Let's get to the game I'm least excited to talk about. It was the Ravens losing 22-19 in overtime. The way I saw somebody phrase this on Twitter, which is accurate, is the refs stole the win from the Ravens that the Ravens didn't even deserve, which is, I think the Ravens did not deserve to win this game, but the refs also really hosed them multiple times late in this game. Very ugly, sloppy. This was a bad weather game. The Ravens were fumbling the ball right and left. Zach Moss, though, not the most efficient performance of all time, but he got 32 touches.
30 carries, 122 on the ground. He caught 2 for 23. I'm in. Obviously, you know, when I say the comment of like, oh, I'd rather have Zach Moss and Breece Hall, that's a now situation, because if Taylor comes back, they're also telling you what Taylor's going to be if he actually returns to this team. You know, if he gets traded, and Zach Moss through the roof here. So we don't really know where that's going to end up going, but Zach Moss looked great. He's a RB2 next week, you know, and until further notice, until Taylor's out there, you're just going to kind of keep throwing him out. Pittman looked good. Josh Downs had 12 targets in this game, which might have been a Gardner Minshew based thing. So if he is starting Richardson out, you can pay attention to that. And then I just want to throw out Zay Flowers had 10 targets in here. Really, the passing game for your Ravens is kind of rough. Lamar Jackson still kind of rough in some spots, but Zay Flowers is like, outside of Lamar, he's like the most dynamic athlete. Like he's a playmaker that they got to get the ball in his hands. And I thought the 10 targets was encouraging.
Zay's awesome. Total home run of a draft pick, it looks like, early on in his career.
Yeah.
If Gus Edwards doesn't play, I honestly wouldn't even bother putting in Fab for Melvin Gordon or Kenyon Drake. I don't think either of these guys is going to make an impact, even if Edwards and Hill are both out. Obviously, Dobbins already out for the year. I wouldn't even bother. I think they're going to spread it around. I think Lamar is essentially going to be RB1 for this offense until Gus is back and Justice Hill is back. I could be wrong, but don't waste your Fab budget on Gordon or Drake, honestly. Like we said, the Ravens are going to be at Cleveland next week. And then the Colts are hosting the Rams, who have not played because they're on Monday night this week. Let's get to the late afternoon slate. Carolina and Seattle. Seahawks, of course, winning 37-27. Kenneth Walker continues to show that the draft pick of Zach Charbonnet didn't matter. We probably drafted him too low. 97 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got 3 more targets in the passing game. He has 10 targets through 3 weeks, which is really nice to see. And he continues to be just a really good running back.
Yeah, it's another one of these things. It's just, I mean, not that I'm trying to defend ETN, but everyone's like, Tank Bigsby, ETN, you know, Charbonnet, Ken Walker. Like, there's some values that are out there. Though Charbonnet, look, he was running hard. You could definitely see where there could be like a thunder and lightning aspect to this game if they really wanted to start having that share. But Ken Walker just still looks great. And very interesting watching Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, 14 targets with Andy Dalton in there, 11 for 145. That is probably an Andy Dalton special. So just know if Dalton happens to be starting in a given week, Adam Thielen should probably be in your lineup as well.
Yeah, this offense is no good. I mean, Miles Sanders got a touchdown, but 9 attempts, 24 yards.
No, he didn't get the usage,
Yeah, this is not an offense that you really want to be invested in at all. And I don't know that Bryce Young coming back would even really help, because he has not looked good in the first 2 weeks.
No.
Either. The Panthers host the Vikings next week, and the Seahawks are playing on Monday night next week. That's at the Giants. Man, a lot of bad teams are in prime time here in week 4. Let's go to the biggest upset of the day. Cardinals 28, Cowboys 16. Not just an upset, but like they won by 2 scores. It was like they deserved to win. This wasn't some fluke last second thing. Was this more the Cardinals stepping up or the Cowboys playing poorly?
I mean, I don't mean to be cheap, but it was a combo of both. I mean, the Cardinals were efficient. They were getting third downs. Marquise Brown was getting the ball. James Conner was running. You just can't let him run hard. He averaged 7 yards per carry on 14 attempts, but also Dak was making really bad decisions, throwing into traffic. They did run the ball 23 times with Pollard, which was great, but CeeDee Lamb caught 4 balls in this game, and Dak just made a bunch of bad decisions. So, Marquise Brown looks good. Rondale Moore, I think, is super interesting. 7 targets, 3 on the ground. He caught 4 balls. They kind of keep getting him involved in the offense, and he might be super sneaky in these type of matchups. But I don't really know what else you take out of this. There were 4 Cowboys that were targeted 7 or more times. Gallup, Lamb, Ferguson, and Cooks all received 7. Relevant outside of Gallup with his 92 yards. It was just a really bad Cowboys game, and very excited to see everybody's power rankings for this week when everybody had the Cowboys over the Niners. So let's go Niners.
That will definitely not be the case this upcoming. I am curious to see how far the Cowboys will fall in the eyes of a lot of people, or if they'll just kind of chalk it up to some sort of.
When you see it, like how the Chiefs just performed, I wonder if the Chiefs would jump for some people. It's a recency thing, and I know like Cowboy fans would be pissed.
Because also this is our first game we see without Trayvon Diggs, and not that we think the defense is going to be bad for the Cowboys going forward, just because they don't have Diggs. They still have Mike.
The Cardinals manhandled them. Cardinals manhandled them, and then the Chiefs absolutely demolished the Bears, and kind of similar teams if you think about it. So I wouldn't be surprised. Again, who the hell cares about power rankings? But I think you'll see people be like, they're still a top 5 team, but maybe they're not as good as we thought they were.
Yeah. Also, Tony Pollard, just very easy top 3 running back rest of the season.
Absolutely. I think he was my RB3, and I think he was Debro's RB1. So.
He was Debro's RB1, and Debro probably not right because of Christian McCaffrey, but he's not far off.
Yeah, that was my number 1.
Yeah. Cowboys at the Patriots next week. Arizona will be at San Francisco, who obviously won on Thursday night this week. And then lastly, we have Chiefs Bears. The Taylor Swift game, apparently, if you were on Twitter at all or watching the broadcast, she got more screen time than the Bears did.
Yep.
41-10. I mean, Mahomes was amazing and barely, I don't even know when they took him out, but it was relatively early that they did. Obviously, he had the bit of the ankle scare. Travis Kelce caught a touchdown. Lock of locks once we knew Taylor Swift was going to be there. Pacheco scored. CEH scored. And then Justin Fields continues to be really bad. We talked about that at the top of the show. DJ Moore had a chance at a long one, and he ended up with just 41 yards. He did get a touchdown late in the game. Is there anything to take away from a blowout like this?
Well, good thing I locked in DJ Moore's receiving yards at 41.5 early in the week. So that really felt good. If you follow me on Betting Pros, you saw that I had it at 41.5. So no, I actually think these are the tough ones. Like a team that was so dominant. What do you take away from it? Rashee Rice gets those targets. Really seems to be a first look type of target. You don't see a lot of wide receivers get first looks with Patrick Mahomes. He seems to start being that guy. So I'm liking Rashee Rice a lot more. Sky Moore is kind of nothing to me in all of that. And
is he droppable, Sky Moore?
Oh yeah, I think he's I would, I'd rather have Tank Dell than Sky Moore right now. So, and then, Bears are, I don't know where you go with it. Like we all want Roschon Johnson to be something, but no one can be anything if this offense keeps working how it is. There's nobody fantasy relevant. And I've made excuses for DJ Moore, but Justin Fields, they got to do something different. And I'd love to hear how it's going to be. Otherwise, I don't know how you start any of these guys. I don't know how I'm talking Justin Fields because they've got, who do the Bears have? The Bears have Denver. That's actually a really good matchup. So that's going to get me thrown back in. But honestly,
how close to 70 points are the Bears going to get against this defense?
Like a 10% of it, maybe 7, maybe they'll score 7.
I think they'll be 80 points away. I think they're going to get -10. That's
what do you think the over under in that game is going to be? It's probably already out there.
I mean, it could be like, this might be like if you remember, like Iowa last year in college football had a game where they're over the total in that game was like 28. Like it would have to be really low for me to not take the under in Bears.
I think it's going to be like 41.5 or 42 or something.
I think it'll be like 38.
Okay. It's probably already out there, but I don't have
it. Probably is. I don't have it pulled up.
We have the DraftKings app up, which you guys can check out. We would probably know.
Yes, that's on us for not having it up. So like we said, Bears, Broncos next week, and then Chiefs will be on Sunday Night Football against the Jets. I hope everybody stuck around because we have a giveaway here. Deebo Samuel didn't play today, of course, was very good on Thursday. The winner of the autographed Deebo Samuel San Francisco 49ers jersey, courtesy of bettingpros.com. is Charlie Brown. Please get in touch with our customer support agents
Charlie
at
Brown.
mailbag@fantasypros.com. Yes, I know. With your mailing address and proof of your subscription to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, and we will get that jersey shipped out to you. Again, the winner is Charlie Brown. Congratulations. I told our producer, Chris, that I would not make a peanuts joke. I'm sure Charlie Brown gets it all the time, but that is his name on YouTube. So again, congrats to Charlie Brown on winning that jersey.
Check this out. Hold on before you go. 45.5 is the line currently for that game next week. Broncos at Chicago.
I mean, I know the defenses both suck, but so do the offenses.
Yeah, I just want to throw that out to you if you want to.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing when I'm guessing it's going to be under 40. I will be taking the under in that game. I can.
Yeah, smash it now.
Take it while you can. Welsh, fun stuff. Fun week 3, except for me with the Ravens. Hopefully it goes better for them in week 4, and hopefully everybody's fantasy matchups went well today and will go well in week 4 as well. Thank you for letting me fill in for Boggs here. For Welsh, I am Ryan Wormeli.